Hello there, Ron here, and welcome to our broadcast. And thank you so much for joining us. I wanted to take a quick moment to introduce you to your host, Michael Stickler. Michael is a best-selling author, book publisher, philanthropist, and highly sought-after thought leader and conference speaker. He has written over 40 books and training courses and consulted with some of the most notable businesses and nonprofits in the world. He's the publisher of multiple well-known media brands like LeadershipBooks, Get Published, Generous Life, Raise Your Vision, and Life in the Red States. And today, he's come to share with us some of the wisdom he has gained through his hard-earned experience. And now, let's welcome Michael Stickler.
Hi, I'm Mike Stickler, and I am the publisher of LeadershipBooks. And I talk to authors every single day, and some of them discuss with me just the challenges that they have in expressing their ideas and getting it down in book form. And so what I want to do is just give you some tips on being an author and writing. What does it really take to write a good book and get it out there into the public? So let's just talk about being an author first. Okay? The first thing I want you to think about is, where are you going to write? Now, this seems kind of odd, but think about that for a minute. Where are you most comfortable writing? Is it outdoors in the sunshine, or is it at home in your desk? What kind of environment do you want to sit in as you write? For me, I like to get up at 4 or 5 in the morning when there's no distractions, lay down on my couch, get my keyboard out, my laptop, and just start writing. I seem to be the freshest in the morning. I like the quietness of my living room. Sometimes if it's wintertime, I light a fire. And I just like the fact that there's no distractions. Plus the fact is, my wife, Kim, she knows that when I'm in that mode to write, and if I get up that early in the morning and I start writing, she just goes about the day being quiet and allowing me to just flow and let all the words come down and the story come down on the keyboard. So think about that. Just think ideally, where would you like to write? Some writers go on writing retreats and just get away and find a place where they're uninterrupted. If that's what you need to do, then that's great. But most of us, we need to just find a time to do that. A space in our life, a space in our time, and a space physically where we can sit and write. Next thing is to put together your writing tools. What are you going to use? I use a laptop, and I use a simple mind map on my iPad. Now, what's a mind map? A mind map allows me to put ideas down in little paragraphs, and then move them around and organize them the way I'd like to. And it works great on an iPad, and it's a free app. You can use several that are out there, but I like to use a mind map. But some people like Evernote, or they're going to do a lot of research, so they want to do different things. It's up to you what you want to use, but put your tools together. Do you like working from a regular computer, or do you like an iPad, or do you like a laptop? What do you want to work with? Do you like an old typewriter? Whatever your tools are, assemble those into your space so that you're not interrupted and you're ready to go. And then the other thing to think about is just don't try to do it all at once. I hear authors do this all the time. They're always trying to just lay out the words. How many words did I write today? I knew an author one time, this was years ago, but he would post on social media, I wrote so many words today. I wrote 10,000 words today. I wrote 4,000 words today, whatever he wrote. And I'm not really sure what that is. When you work with us as a publisher, what we do is we put you on a writing budget. And that writing budget basically says, well, if you're going to do a 50 or 60,000 word book, and we're going to do it over a year, then we typically break you out into like 2,000 to 3,000 words a week, just to kind of get you in the habit and in the practice of writing. So I want you to think that way. Just think about breaking down your project in smaller ways. Okay? Make sure that you've got the big idea in mind. Where are you going? What's your storyline? What exactly do you want to say? We always suggest that you, about 3/4 of the way through your book or 2/3 of the way through your book, you've come to the crescendo of your ideas. So work from that backwards and that from that forwards. Does that make sense? So if you're assuming that somewhere around, let's say, page 150 or 20,000 words into your 30,000 word book, you've got this is where you're going to put your big idea, then put it there and then work from that and work to that. Does that make sense? So keep that idea in mind and then tell the story leading up to the crescendo and then tell the story throughout your conclusion. That way you've got just a really powerful idea that you're leading to. It's really a crucial piece. Then sit down and construct your outline. Now, this takes some work, okay? But I want you to realize your outline is not necessarily going to be where your chapters are all going to ultimately fit in. So just think about your big idea and laying out your chapters from there, okay, going backwards or reverse engineering it, and then laying out your chapters, your remaining chapters from your big idea to the conclusion of your book. And then write to those. That's the easiest way to do it. And there's a lot here, but I'm just trying to give you some outline in all of this. I know as we're going through these ideas, you're going, boy, Mike, I got more questions. So I understand. Now, establish a deadline that is not going to move. Now, again, if you put yourself on a writing budget, you'll give yourself an idea when this deadline is going to be. And you're going to place that deadline, and you're going to mark it on your calendar, and you're going to tell everybody about it. And if you've got a publisher, you're going to tell your publisher about it. And everyone's settled in on exactly what that date is. And then you're going to work to that date. Now, give yourself enough time, a little bit of leeway, if you will, here and there so you can take time away, or if you get sick with the flu or something like that. So don't make it so short that you can't get there. In fact, I would encourage you to give it a greater length of time than you anticipate. Now, I talk to primarily nonfiction authors, and nonfiction authors, for some reason, they're always trying to rush and get their book done. Now, I'll just say it like this. You have spent your whole life putting this story together and developing these stories and ideas and concepts and your process. For you that are fiction authors, you've spent a good part of your life putting together this idea. Don't be in a rush, okay? Don't be in a rush to do that. Just keep enough time to really tell the story well. Our industry's full of all kinds of guys that are out there saying, oh, I'll show you how to do it in 3 weeks, in 6 weeks, in 10 weeks. Why? Why would you want to do that? You spent your whole life doing this. Why do you now want to rush and get it all done in 4 weeks? That's just crazy talk as far as I'm concerned. Take the time to do it well, because that content is going to have everything to do with how powerful your story is received and how well it'll end up selling in the long run. You know what? Procrastination. You know, that's probably the number one thing that happens with authors is they just start to procrastinate. And I personally, for me, I just don't think that's a big deal. If you've given yourself enough time, make sure that, you know, maybe you take that time and space instead of, you know, my 5 o'clock in the morning thing. Maybe what you do is you get up at that time and you just get in the idea. Sometimes I like to watch movies or read other books to get myself stimulated with storylines. Start to look at storylines that you see in movies. Start to look at the storylines that you see in books that you're reading, and then reflect back on how you can do this. So use your time that you're not actually putting your fingers on the keyboard. Use that time to really improve yourself and your knowledge of how to write. It's really just not a major thing. I think what happens is people end up feeling really guilty over uh, the fact that they didn't write today. And I really would rather it be more organic and out of my heart than feeling like I had to put down words. I have to do this today, because then it just doesn't come out very good anyway. When you sit down and you start to work and write, eliminate the distractions around you. As I've mentioned before, I like the early morning hours, but maybe you want quiet time. If you have children at home and you know the kids are going to get up and start demanding your time, well, that's not the time to write. If you have a job and a responsibility and you think you're going to squeeze in some time during breaks and whatnot, that's probably not the time to write. I'd encourage you to really eliminate all distractions, and that includes that stinking cell phone. Turn it off, okay? And it also includes turn off, if you're using your laptop, turn off your email so that people aren't emailing you. Those two things in alone are probably the biggest distractions. Turn the television off, okay, so that you can have uninterrupted time. When I'm writing, I get in this zone. It's really fun, actually. I get in this zone where the story is just running in my head, and I'm just cranking it out, and the story's running in my head, and I'm kind of in that place, completely there. I'm visualizing the scenes. I'm visualizing the stories that I'm telling. I'm visualizing all of the things that are happening. And I want you to do that too, see? In fact, my wife laughs at me. She says, gosh, Mike, it takes you like 2 hours to get out of that zone. So when I close my laptop and I'm up and back into life, I still wander around kind of in this zone because I'm so focused on the storytelling that I'm doing. So I encourage you to do the same kind of thing. Get yourself in that zone. And the only way you can do that is eliminate all the distractions that are around you. Oh, and by the way, that could include your pets too. I know people that get distracted by their animals all the time. So put those outside as well. Make sure you construct your research in a very efficient way. Now, I think research is deeply important to telling good stories. If you're a nonfiction writer, you need to give attribution all throughout your book. If you're using statistics and studies, you have to have all of that data put together. And that kind of work actually isn't where I do the writing. I don't do my research. I typically do the writing and then go find the research. Or if I find some really great research that I've come across, then I come back and add that into my book. So, but make sure that you get that research done. And there's this thing called proof texting where you go back and you've made a claim and then you go back and try to prove it based on studies and stuff and try to shove that into, the square peg into the round hole kind of thing, trying to shove that research in to prove your point. Yeah, be careful about that, okay? People that really understand your material are going to question what you're doing. So it really needs to spring from the research that you put down, not what your ideas are and then try to prove it from your research. Here's something that a lot of folks don't think about. Start calling yourself an author. Yeah, start calling yourself an author. When you introduce yourself as an author. Or I write books, or I sell books. I mean, those are the things I say. And people just kind of stop and go, really? And you'd be surprised how honored they are to know you. I always kind of chuckle. Truly, most authors are starving to death, so I don't know how honorable that is. I think it's really that you just take the time and the energy to write. But start calling yourself an author. Don't be afraid of it. It's a great title, and you're in great company, especially if you're a good author. So just start calling yourself an author. Put it on your business card. Change your social media to say, I'm an author, so people know. And then I would also caution you, don't run around and say, well, I'm a published author. Well, nowadays just about everybody can be published, whether they're self-published or published by a traditional publisher. And so that can often be a misnomer. Just stating that you're an author, even if you state you're a published author, but just don't embellish upon it trying to find identity in something that's beyond what you are. I think just winsomeness and and humility about what you're doing is going to carry and be a lot more authentic than laying out all your awards and those kinds of things and putting that in your title anyway. That's just my opinion. I know that some people that are marketers are not going to agree with me, but that's my opinion. Think of the reader. One of the things we challenge all the time is that if you only print 1,000 books, what are the 1,000 people? There's only going to be 1,000 books ever of your book. Who are you going to put it in the hands of? Who are the 1,000 people, this precious commodity? Who are you going to put it in the hands of? And that's your reader. Those 1,000 people are your reader. And so when you're writing, think about those 1,000 people all the time. Think about who those readers are all the time. Think about what we call your audience all the time. And in the basis of that, that will help really pull in the reader into your storyline. Write a compelling opener. That's a crucial piece. Is in your first chapter or two, it needs to be really grab your reader. Okay, this long preamble thing might have worked 30, 50, or 100 years ago, but today this long preamble doesn't work. People's attention spans are short, and so you have to really compel. You got to grab that reader early on into your book, or they're not going to continue to read it. Remember, about 80% of all people who purchase a book never complete the book, and that's mostly, in my opinion, mostly because the book isn't worth completing. So really make that book start with a compelling opening so that you grab that reader and then you carry them through the storyline. Of course, that compelling opening has to only be the introduction that takes them through a compelling storyline, but be sure that you do that. You can't depend on leading up, 100 pages into your book before you bring, really grab them with a story, because if you do that, they will have stopped a long time ago and they've never seen the story because they never got that far. Fill your story with conflict and tension. Make sure your voice is in there. Make sure that, if you read my work, I have a tendency to be a little sarcastic, so you'll hear it. You'll hear that I'm direct and to the point. You'll hear that I like to not just create tension in characters, but create tensions in situations. And I often tell stories. I'm primarily a Christian writer, but even in my stories that are Christian living books, I tell stories that create tension. So you're going, what? I have people that come up who have read my book and walk up and say, I read this whole part, and the whole part that I was reading, this whole story you were telling, I kept thinking to myself, what are you, stupid? What are you, stupid? See, that meant I had the reader, see. I was telling a story that created a real tension, and they kept looking at me because I was telling it in the first person, like, what are you dumb? Why would you do that? That was my point. It became a memorable story. So make sure that you do that. And also when you're writing, at least for me, is I just dump the words on the keyboard. I don't work at trying to edit and change it. In fact, this is how I do it. Now, Jerry Jenkins calls it the pantser. That's pretty much how I write. I just lay the story out and just crank it out. I let that tape that's playing in my head come out my fingers, and I lay it out there. And I don't worry about spelling. I don't worry about punctuation. I don't worry about grammar. I don't worry about anything. I just lay it all out there. And then when I'm done writing for the day, I might go back and start making some of those just simple changes, just at least correcting all the red lines of spelling errors and those kinds of things. And then I might wait 24 hours or 48 hours and go back and start doing the editorial pieces to what I've written so far. And I think that's really crucial, is to just dump the ideas, for me anyway, dump the ideas. And don't sit there and fiddle with it over and over and over again. when you do that, you start to lose who you are and the passion of who you are. So make sure that you just don't be an editor when you're writing. Be an editor later, but for right now, when you're writing, just write. Okay? I'd like you to also think about that. If you're going to make your case, nonfiction author, if you're going to make your case, do that in the middle. So you've got your opening that's very compelling, and then you're going to make your case in the middle, and then you're going to bring it to your crescendo about 2/3 or 3/4 of the way through the book, and then you're going to explain what to do with what you've taught them, okay, for the remainder of the book, and then leave your last chapter to reiterate the things that you've taught them. If you're writing a fiction book, use your compelling opener, tell the story and develop your characters leading to the crescendo, plant your storyline ideas throughout your the middle as you're getting there, and then really conclude it powerfully. And by the way, that I want to make sure you understand, just because you get the crescendo, you really have to wrap it up, and you really have to end your book powerfully, so people really grab a hold of it. They are really turning the pages. That's really crucial. You can't just kind of get to the crescendo and then peter out. You have to really keep that tempo to the conclusion, and then use your last chapter to reiterate. For a fiction book, you're going to use that last chapter to set up what your next fiction book is going to be about, right? Okay. Next thing, now that you're starting to get there, don't hesitate to be, an aggressive editor. Don't hesitate to really be critical about your work. If you don't know it, writing is, you got to be pretty vulnerable to write. If you're going to write a good book, you got to be pretty vulnerable with it. And if you're going to be really vulnerable with it, you're going to get criticism. And one of the people that's going to criticize you is you. And so I really encourage you to look at each sentence, try to consider how you could say it better. Don't be defensive when your editors are trying to help you shape it. The only time you really want to protect it is when you're saying it in your voice. And when I've seen a lot of editors homogenize people, okay, in their voice. They make eunuchs out of people, and they end up just not telling their story. It feels like a dissertation instead of a story that's compelling and has grabbed the reader. So don't do that, okay? Be a self-editor, be self-critical, make sure that you go through and really look at each detail, allow others to look at it. I love getting other feedback and those kinds of things, but gosh, you've got to be confident enough in yourself. Okay, you've got to be confident enough in yourself to not feel like you've somehow gotten offended over people's suggestions. Do what my son did. My son's a very intelligent man, well educated. He called me up one day and he said, "Papa," now my grown boys still call me Papa. He says, "Papa, I need some advice, but I just want you to know I may not take it." So if you ask people to review your work, just say right up front, I want to hear your thoughts. Just know I may not take it. And I think that's really important. And then I think the most important thing for you to do is to find a coach, somebody that's going to coach you through writing. Now, there's lots of people out there, and so a good coach, somebody that does this all the time, is deeply important. Okay, if you're a nonfiction author, give us a ring. We'd love to help you. If you're a fiction author, we're going to be able to point you in some great directions to help. We've got some good online courses that are available, so take advantage of those. I've got some great material on our website that you could download and help you with, but it's important that you have a coach when you're going through your first and even your second book. It really helps you develop, really helps you come together as a writer. One of the ways to do that, by the way, is to look at that person's writing. Now, I'm going to say to you that sometimes an editor is not really an author, and an author is not really an editor. So just because you have an editor doesn't mean necessarily that person's going to be able to coach you in your writing skills. So you want somebody that's going to be able to coach you. Leadership Books has mentors that actually, we call them executive editors, who actually coach you through the process and teach you as well as help you through the editorial process. And we encourage you to do that. Now, this is just a start. I've taken a few minutes here to just give you a start, just to kind of encourage you as an author to get writing. So please start. Just start. Don't be afraid. Just start. And express your ideas. I think it's one of the purest things that a human being can do is express their ideas and get them out there. Okay? I'm Mike Stickler. I'm the publisher of Leadership Books. We have a whole program called Get Published. If you want more free resources and you want to know more about how you can get your book published, you can go on the link right here on this page and download some of those resources and reach out to us. We'd love to help you. All right, God bless. Oh, and don't forget to like us right here on the social media page. Make sure you like us. Make sure you make your comments. Those are really, really important. Just do that right here or over here maybe, or I don't know, wherever it is. Make sure that you like us on one of these pages because that really matters to us. Okay, thanks so much and God bless. Until next time.